Welcome to the Patriotic Pulpit. I am Bill Lockwood. We're looking at today the Biden cover-up, a crime against the Republic. This is an article written by Todd Starnes, his commentary, which is today, May 21st, 2025. I, however, want to alter his title. It's not simply the Biden cover-up. It's a Democrat Party cover-up, a crime against the Republic. The whole Democratic Party has been covering up all of this for so long. And he begins the article with a statement from Donald Trump. And I want to read the statement because in some ways I appreciate what Trump has to say here, but in other ways I think he is absolutely wrong about what he has to say. So listen carefully to what Trump has put out on Truth Social. Trump speaking, quote, Joe Biden was not for open borders. He never talked about open borders, where criminals of all kinds, shapes, and sizes can flow into our country at will. It wasn't his idea to open the border and almost destroy our country and cost us hundreds of billions of dollars to get criminals out of the country and to go through the process we're going through right now. It was the people that knew he was cognitively impaired and that took over the auto pen. They stole the presidency of the United States and put us in great danger. This is treason at the highest level. They did it to destroy the country. The Joe Biden that everybody knew would never allow drug dealers, gang members, the mentally insane to come into our country totally unchecked and unvetted. All anyone has to do is look up his record. Something very severe should happen to these treasonous thugs that wanted to destroy our country but could not because I came along. Make America great again. Donald Trump, end of quote. So several things about this that I appreciate. Number one, what is going on has been a crime against our country. That is, the entire Democratic machine has been criminal in its activity against our country by opening the borders up. That alone shows the criminality of the Democratic Party. You don't have a country if you don't have borders. That's what people have been saying and understanding and knowing for so long. That absolutely is true. What Donald Trump said regarding this as being treasonous, that activity is right. But number two, what I do not agree with Trump on is that Joe Biden was not for open borders. Now, I am not willing, I know that he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer. I know that he's diagnosed with a debilitating disease, and we're not wishing that on anyone. I'm not happy about that. I don't want even my worst enemies to have diseases like that or to have any kind of negative reaction in their lives at all. I don't wish that on anybody. However, Donald Trump doesn't need to let him off the hook. Joe Biden, he says, did not talk about open borders. That's the Democratic way of doing things. They don't talk about it. They say one thing and do another. That is how they lie all the time. That is part and parcel of what has been going on. It's been going on since the time of FDR. FDR came in to the presidency saying, well, no, we are not going to send our boys into war. While at the very same time, he already had people in his staff drafting up different points on which he wanted to follow in order to get us into the war. The same thing regarding Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson said, we're not going to send our boys into war. At the same time, even before that, Edward Mandell House, who was his sidekick, said, or had already gone over, had already promised we were going to get into the war. This is how the Democrat machine operates. It lies continually to people. They say, we're not going to do this. So to say Joe Biden was not for open borders because he never talked about it, so what? They do what they want to do. They tell one thing and do another. And to say that it was not his idea to open the border, destroy a country, no, that is false. It was his idea. We're not letting him off the hook because he has a debilitating disease. But here's the basic bottom line that I want to point out regarding, and with which I agree with President Trump. This has been the biggest treasonous movement in our history, and we should not let the Democrats off the hook at all. The Democrat Party today is saying continually, well, we want to move ahead. We want to look forward. You know what? That only ignorant people would be that stupid to do it that way. To say, oh, okay. They had the biggest crime cover-up in our country. Lying. The FBI had lied about Hunter Biden's laptop. Are we holding those people accountable? They have been doing one scam after another against the American people, and they need to be held accountable, and we don't need to simply, let's look forward to something else. No, let's go back and figure out what happened here and hold them accountable by kicking the rest of them out of office, not simply the president. I'm talking about Joe Biden. So here's Todd Starnes' article. He said, I just finished reading The Original Sin, the book documenting Biden's mental decline, written by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. I am horrified and enraged. The Biden health cover-up is the greatest political scandal in American history. Contrary to much of the reporting, the book shows there were clear signs of Biden's cognitive decline dating back to 2017. I became more enraged by every page I turned. Original Sin should make every freedom-loving patriot rise up in rage. Well, I want to say this, just stopping here for a moment. I haven't read Original Sin. I hear the reports about it. I'm reading one of the reports right now. I understand what they're saying. But we were enraged already. Everybody was enraged already because we knew. Everybody knew that had common sense out here in America. This is what was going on. We knew the mainstream media was lying to us. We knew that the White House staff was lying to the people. We knew that. This is not, I might get madder and madder reading the book myself, but this is not news. This is exactly what we have known, and what so frustrating to freedom-loving Americans such as myself is that people will vote Democrat anyway. They don't care. They don't care whether he's cognitively declined or not. They just want to put a puppet in office. They don't care. That's why they lockstep together with all the Democrats. You don't have them going one direction and another. The Republicans, they say, well, we can never get together. Well, that's because Republicans actually, for the most part, are thinkers. They actually weigh different issues against the Constitution, and some of them draw different conclusions than others and don't necessarily get on board with every single bill that comes along. But Democrats don't do that. No, they just lockstep together. How about all of those FBI agents who signed the statement knowingly lying about Hunter Biden's laptop? Let's hold them accountable. How about the mainstream media? Why have they not lost complete credibility? How is it that anybody watches CNN at all anymore? I don't even know. This is absolutely, and here's something else. The idea that the Democrats say, well, let's just move on to the next issue. Well, we want to look forward to something else. When it came to that juvenile crime that Richard Nixon committed, where Republican operatives broke into the Democratic headquarters at Watergate, and therefore that has become the synonym for scandal in our country, Watergate. Now we have Bidengate and so forth. That looked like child's play, breaking into a headquarters and taking materials. There was the movie put out by the Robert Redfords of the world, Dustin Hoffman and so forth, that all the president's men, and the whole message was, we, as the reporters, just kept after it. We dug down. We figured out who was doing what. We knew who Deep Throat was. We've discovered all this. And we finally smoked out the truth, and we got Nixon out there, and he resigned. See, that's the way reporters should behave. But no, on this one, the Democrats and the reporters now are saying, okay, this is what's going on, but let's go on to the future. Let's look to the future. I don't know. That's dismaying. So Starnes goes on to say, this great fraud was perpetrated on the American people. A great harm was inflicted due to the radical far-left policies that were enacted. That's the point. There were policies enacted, Joe Biden himself enacting them, that destroyed our country, or in the process of destroying our country. So Starnes says there must be a commission to determine if the cover-up rose to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, I'm going to say we know that it rose to high crimes. Crimes against the Republic were committed, and those responsible must be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Todd Starnes writes, and I agree perfectly with that. If that means military tribunals, so be it. I doubt, though, that the Republicans will be able to muster the courage and moral clarity to carry that out. The FCC should consider revoking the licenses of all broadcast outlets that knowingly took part in that cover-up. Journalists must be fired. There needs to be a full-blown cleansing of Washington, D.C. We must know who is leading our country over the past 4 years, who is wielding the auto pen. There were two words missing from CNN's Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson from Axios. The two words were, "I'm sorry." Both have laid out the devastating truth that Democrats, the mainstream media, Hollywood covered up Biden's incapacity, but they never apologized for their part in the cover-up. That's the least they should do. And even more despicable, Tapper and Thompson, along with a host of other major media outlets, tried to destroy the career and credibility of conservative journalists who dared to point out the truth and the obvious truth that it was. So Starnes concludes his article, I appreciate that Mr. Tapper and Mr. Thompson finally told the truth, but they too are culpable. At the very least, they should resign from their positions. They brought great shame upon their profession. There must be a day of reckoning for the Democrats, the media, and Hollywood. And even CNN Van Jones gets that. So Jones made this statement, looking at the book that we're talking about that Todd Starnes is reviewing. The book makes it very, very clear that there are people who knew and said nothing. And that is a crime against this republic. I think the Democrats are going to pay for a long time for being a part of what is now being revealed to be a massive, massive cover-up. So said Van Jones. That's the point. It has been a cover-up to destroy our nation. They're enemies of the state. They're enemies of America. They're enemies of freedom. They want absolutely to overrun our nation with foreigners that don't have any care about our Constitution. And they certainly do not care whether we go into a socialistic system. And it is sad that the mainstream media continues to cover for them. We need to go back, get it out, let it all get out in the open. And sunlight is the best disinfectant for those kind of molds that are growing.